how and why did you become a priest? For me, the why question is easy to answer. It's because I felt that God was calling me to be a priest. But the how is a lot more complicated because it happened so gradually over quite a long period of time. As I look back over my life, there's been some subtle hints that God could have been calling me to ministry. At the age of about 6 or 7, I remember being at the church fete and being sent off with £1 to go and buy a nice book to read. And I came back with a Bible. Then when I left school, I remember the head teacher reading a prepared statement, wishing us well with our further education, employment, or calling to holy orders. And he laughed to himself and he said, of course, none of you are going down that route. And I remember thinking at the time, well, you don't have the authority to say that. You don't know what God could be calling anybody in this room to at some point in the future, not knowing that it had anything to do with me at the time. But nonetheless, it set alarm bells off in my head. And then over a period of time, I started to think that God may be calling me to some form of ministry. And I didn't know at that time what that might look like. And so I started speaking to my parish priest and then the vocation advisor and the director of ordinands. And it was discerned that God may be calling me to ordained ministry. I eventually went off to college and I studied at St. Paddens for 3 years, gaining my Bachelor of Theology degree and then a postgraduate diploma in theology. And then I was ordained deacon and I spent a year as a deacon here in Maesteg before being ordained priest. Beginning my ordained ministry in the middle of a pandemic has been somewhat of a challenge, but they have also been incredible joys. The joys of coming alongside people as they prepare to get married, the joys of coming alongside people as they prepare for baptism, and the privilege of coming alongside people as they mourn the loss of loved ones, supporting them in their grief through my presence and through my prayer. And so I encourage you to keep your minds open to what God may be calling you to. I certainly didn't think that God was calling me to be a priest, but that sense of vocation gradually grew and eventually turned into a wrestling match between me and God. It wasn't what I wanted, but it clearly was what God wanted. And at some point I had to give in and say, well, God, if that's what you're calling me to, then here I am. So keep your minds open to what God may be calling you to. Pray about it. Talk to some trusted people, maybe family, friends, or even your parish priest. Be open to whatever God is calling you to.